The former president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, has arrived at the Trump Tower in New York on Monday ahead of his historic booking and arraignment on hush money charges. The case against Trump stems from payment made during the 2016 campaign. Prosecutors say their case against him has nothing to do with politics and have defended the work of a Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who is leading it. Trump is facing multiple charges of falsifying business records, including at least one felony offense in an indictment handed down by a Manhattan grand jury last week. The investigation is scrutinizing six-figure payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels and a former Playboy model, Karen McDougal. Both say they had sexual encounters with a married Trump years before he got into politics. Trump denies having sexual liaisons with either woman and has denied any wrongdoing involving payments. Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham speaks on the development from Washington.
The former president is now back in New York, where he will be arraigned in a court of law. And it's expected that that indictment that, of course, we know came down just a few days ago will be unsealed. And we should learn the details of the charges that are being brought against Donald Trump. Now, here's what we are learning. We do not know if, in fact, a judge is going to allow cameras into the courtroom. In addition to that, it's unclear if the judge is actually going to unseal the indictment so that the public can see the charges that are being brought against the former president. What we do know is that Donald Trump's lawyers are actually asking or petitioning the court that a camera not be allowed tomorrow in the courtroom for the former president's arraignment. They say that they believe that this will somehow diminish the former president's constitutional right to the innocence until found guilty. And so that's the argument that they're going to make for tomorrow. Will they actually make that case going forward if, in fact, there is a trial? We don't know. But what we know at this time is the former president is expected to show up tomorrow for his arraignment. We're told that arraignment will take just a matter of hours, no more than a couple of hours. And then the former president will be back on his plane, traveling back to Florida, where he will have a press availability tomorrow night. And of course, many expect that to be pretty explosive. It's also important to note, Micah, that what we're seeing right now is Donald Trump has used this indictment to great maximum exposure for himself as well as his candidacy. Already since this happened, we saw that the former president has raised more than $7 million for his campaign. In addition to that, he has separated himself from the rest of the field. Of course, many questions going forward is, will he continue to enjoy the enormous advantages that he has made for himself, or will somehow this indictment or other criminal liabilities actually catch up to him? Only time will tell, but that's what we're seeing right now. While we don't know the details of the charges, when those charges are eventually made public, it's certainly going to reshape the former president's candidacy, and it's also going to reshape the narrative around his candidacy.
Right. Dr. Abati, your take on this.
Okay. Well, I mean, we started the conversation around this subject yesterday. And yesterday, President Trump reported, or rather moved to New York, stayed at Trump Towers on the Fifth Avenue, where for the rest of the day, he had meetings with his lawyers in preparation for his formal arraignment this morning. He's not going to be physically arrested because he's a former president. But this morning, New York time, is going to walk through the streets of New York to the Lower Manhattan Court, the court of Judge Juan Merchan, where he will be formally arraigned. His charges will be read to him. And his lawyers say that he's expected to plead not guilty. He will plead not guilty, of course, because he has consistently, in this matter, denied any wrongdoing. And he has said, look, he didn't even have any extramarital affair. But of course, the interest of the media, which Eric Ham alluded to. Yesterday evening, Judge Juan Merchan, ruled that, the plan is not to create a circus-like environment within the premises of the court. But still photographers, a pool of still photographers will be allowed in court to take photographs briefly before the formal arraignment. So that's the arraignment, for today. And that will be at 15 minutes after 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time today. But of course, the other issue is about law enforcement in the city of New York. And we're told that the law enforcement agencies in New York are on, what you call special alert to provide security, more so as there have been concerns about the possibility of supporters of President Trump storming New York to come and protest. And in this regard, New York Mayor Eric Adams has had cause to warn all pro-Trump groups, to be on their best behavior, which is message specifically directed at Marjorie Greene, representative from Georgia, who has, given advance notice that she will organize, pro-Trump rally. So today is a historic day, first time in American history that a former president will be arraigned for, on criminal charges. We're told these charges will be about 30 to 34 counts. And out of this, at least there will be at least one felony charge in the District of New York. If there's a difference between a felony and a misdemeanor. But a felony is, of course, very serious matter. As has been pointed out, this has not damaged Donald Trump's standing within his own Republican Party. Instead, it has helped him to rally his base. In fact, he's been able to raise, as of yesterday night, up to $8 million in terms of support. But okay, if he's the front runner still for the 2024 presidential election in his own party, of course, this whole crisis has distanced him from the larger American majority, who for the first time in their lifetime, perhaps, are seeing a former president being arraigned in court on criminal charges. But of course, for many people, it looks like Donald Trump asked for it. A lifetime of behaving badly, and taking on the law. The lesson here is clearly that nobody is above the law. Accountability is important in and out of office. And these, are two important lessons that, others, particularly in Africa, can learn from that particular example. And I hope that we'll get to a day in Nigeria also where our leaders can be held accountable in and out of office, as we have seen in other jurisdictions, in Brazil, in China, and also, most recently, in the United Kingdom.
So I think the interesting thing about this case is the fact that, number one, it is Donald Trump, and number two, is going to be the first president of America, or former president of America, to be indicted. But this is not the first time public officials are being indicted. And I'll cast your mind back to 1973. The first time there was a major story about a rising star politician, vice president of America, indicted was Agnew Spiro. And we all remember the Spiro case. Was indicted, finally went to court, pled no contest in court, and he was slapped a $10,000 fine. And afterwards, he left office of the vice president, and he went ahead to make money all his life, because he gave talks and all of that. Also, in recent times, we've had case of indictment. Another one that comes to mind was Rick Perry, governor of Texas. There was an indictment by a grand jury in Texas, but he was cleared of all charges afterwards. But while he was indicted, still went ahead, put himself in the race for the Republican, nomination to be president, and still went ahead to serve, on the same cabinet of Donald J. Trump. But the difference this time around is because of the antecedents of Donald J. Trump. The fact that for all these years, he has gone through all of this. He has been in the eye of the storm. And he knows how to work the legal system. Trump used to have a lawyer called Roy Coon, said to be one of the toughest lawyers out of New York. And the strategy then was always to counter-sue anybody that sues him. He did a lot. He got away with a lot. when he built his first hotel, he got away with a 40-year tax break. But the albatross here is his lawyer is having a spat with Michael Cohen. They paid the hush money, but they fell out. Michael Cohen went through his own indictment, and after coming out of serving jail time, he went ahead to say that Trump did this and will nail him. The political implication that his base is rallied up. Some people are saying the Republican Party is rallying around him. Yes. Some people are saying Ron DeSantis is even in support of him and saying this is a political witch hunt. Will that stop Ron DeSantis too from his own aspiration? Anyway, Ron DeSantis, people argue, has not officially declared. His campaign team talked about yesterday the fact that he's raised $5 to $8 million US dollars. That is a groundswell around him. Let's see how that pans out. Let's see what will happen today when he gets his time in court. Will his mug shot be taken? That's what a lot of people want to see. Mug shot of a former president. Let's see if that'll pan out. His team has argued vehemently that for security reasons, they don't want cameras to be in there and all of that. But we'll see how all of this pans out. But it's history, coming out. And we'll see how all of this affects 2024 run of Donald J. Trump. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, yesterday issued a stern warning to violent groups across the country. Yahaya, who gave the warning in Abuja at the ceremony of the Chief of Army Staff, First Quarter Conference 2023, also hinted that operations against saboteurs has raised oil production to 1.3 million barrels per day. The Department of State Services recently raised the alarm that there are some plans by some political actors to push for setting up of an interim national government with a view to undermining civil rule as an aftermath of the general election. Yahaya reassured Nigerians that the Nigerian Army will not relent in its efforts at safeguarding the nation's commonwealth and insisted that the Army will do everything within its power to contain all forms of threats against Nigeria.
Various military hardware and technologies are on display at this exhibition as part of activities marking the first quarter of the 2023 Chief of Army Staff Conference. Some of them are technologies which will help the Nigerian Army win the war against insurgency. The Chief of Army Staff says indigenous technologies will play a vital role in the Army's theater operations.
Because research and development is key in what we do. Everything today is driven by technology. And now if you wait and nobody will give you technology, you have to produce it, you have to develop it, sometimes you have to steal it for you to provide your needs. And that's what you have seen on display.
As part of the conference, the Nigerian Army will review the activities of the first quarter and re-strategize for future operations.
The peaceful conduct of general elections across the country, including in the southeast, despite the sense of insecurity created by criminal elements in the region, is a testament to our resolve to ensure security in the entire nation. This was made possible through successful conduct of Operation Safe Conduct 2023 across the nation, which saw the Nigerian Army, along with other services and agencies, ensuring successful general elections.
The Chief of Army Staff also commissioned the Farouk Yahaya Historical Park. The Nigerian Army says the park will help commemorate and preserve the heritage of the Army and soldiers, especially those who paid the supreme price while in service. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
All right, Dr. Bati.
Well, first quarter conference by the Chief of Army Staff. Well, it was majorly, a chest-beating lizard event. You know what they say about the Agama lizard. If nobody will praise the Agama lizard will raise his head and say, I will praise myself. And that's precisely, what the Chief of Army Staff was doing at that conference yesterday. Okay, another way to look at it is that it is in order to find the Office of the Chief of Army Staff of the Federation giving an account in line with the general established principle about accountability. Well, one major takeaway from what he said, which I think should be underlined, is that he said the military will continue to perform its constitutional role. The role of the Nigerian military is properly spelled out in the Constitution. Section 217, subsection 2, A to D, to protect Nigeria against external aggression, to protect the borders against any kind of incursion, land, sea, air, and then, of course, to aid civil authority, and then to take on assignments as may be determined by the National Assembly. And in this regard, in illustrating this, the Chief of Army Staff made it very, very clear that the Nigerian military is committed to protecting the integrity of the Nigerian state. And this coming on the back of the Department of State Services saying that there's some people who are trying to subvert the Nigerian state, I think is important. This also coming against the background of the fact that some people have been saying, oh, there should be no inauguration on May 29. Some people even making insinuations as if they want the military. It is important to hear from the Chief of Army Staff and the leadership of the Nigerian Army that this Nigerian Army is committed to its constitutional mandate and also to the objectives of professionalism. Okay, what are some of the key highlights of the Chief of Army Staff's points? He talked about Operation Safe Conduct 2023 and the role that the military played in collaboration with other security agencies in the country to ensure a peaceful atmosphere during the elections conducted in Nigeria on February 25th and also March 18. And he cited the example of Operation Udoka in the Southeast, where through Operation Udoka, they were able to ensure that people were encouraged to come out and vote. He also talked about Operation Delta Safe, under which he says, oh, the military had played a major role in reducing oil theft and also ensuring that the crude oil production in Nigeria has gone up to about 1.3 million barrels per day. Well, while he praises Operation Delta Safe, I think it's also important to stress the point that the military can do a lot more in that regard, even if the bigger issue is how do we expand the revenue base, how do we diversify the Nigerian economy and take advantage of the increased productivity in the direction of non-oil revenue. Oil, of course, being a wasting asset. And then, of course, you talked about the North, Operation Desert Sanity, Operation Adinkai, also in the North, which he says has ensured, safety in the northeastern flank. So that was how I began by saying, it's a chest-beating thing. But Nigerians expect the Nigerian military and other security agencies to do more, to make this environment safe, productive, and to ensure that our sovereignty, the integrity of the Nigerian space is not tainted in any particular manner. And we hope that other agencies, will give account, particularly the police. When is the Inspector General of Police also going to hold his own conference and give us an account of, what they've been doing and what they did during the elections? And the same for other agencies of government.
Right. The Nigerian military, I'll say kudos to them for the job they have done so far, but there's still a lot that they need to do. And I'm happy that the military chief talked about the operations they've embarked on. We understand the fact that they are stretched at this point in time. We understand the fact that there are difficulties here and there, armory difficulty, logistic difficulty, and all of that, and the fact that boots on the ground are too much in most areas of the country. I mean, there's never been a time in the last 10 years that the Nigerian military has been this stretched. Insurgency in most parts of the country. Almost every part of the country you go is inundated with crisis. Only yesterday we heard about another attack in the north. But we thank the military for all they do. Also at this point in time, I think we've constantly repeated that the peaceful handover of power is the hallmark of every democracy. And the DSS releasing a message saying that some people are trying to ensure the swearing doesn't happen. Like I always say, the peaceful handover of power is the hallmark of every democracy. And there are some things that are not negotiable, barring legal, decisions. And truth has to be told. The military needs to stand tall as regards national security and the security of our territory in general. Also, by extension, there were some shakeups in the Navy that deals with our, on-sea security. And there were also some shakeups. And the military also took glory for restoration of production to a certain level for oil, but I'll say largely that's been a combined effort, not only the military alone. The military also took glory for some of its operations all over the country as enumerated. But one thing is certain, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. But the military cannot do it alone. And that's why, please, we'd like to call on our political actors to stop the very debilitating rhetoric, to stop the very vile words at one another, to stop the ethnic and the religious baiting, so that we can have peace and tranquility in our country, and that's the way we'll grow. But thanks to the military for what they have done, but like they say, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement.